This is Jessica with cutesycrafts.com. Today I'm going to show you how to hem a pair of pants using a blind hem stitch on your sewing machine. For hemming our pants, we're going to need some straight pins, or if you're worried about getting poked, you can use safety pins. You'll also need some sharp fabric scissors. You want thread that matches the pants as closely as possible. You'll also need a ruler or measuring tape. You'll need something to mark the fabric. This is a tailor's chalk in this little holder thing. You may also need a seam ripper, and of course you'll need your sewing machine with a blind hem capability and a blind hem presser foot. So to hem our pants, first we need to decide how much of the pant legs need to come off. And to do that, have the person try on the pants. While the person's wearing them, fold the pant leg under until you have gotten the desired length. For mine, when I tried these on, it ended up being about the exact amount that this seam allowance already is in here. So that's where I'm gonna fold mine up and under. And then you'll take your straight pins and poke them down in and then back up and out. Make sure not to poke the person wearing the pants. And then just go ahead and put a few pins all around. Do that for both pant legs. Our bodies are not symmetrical. Someone might have a longer leg than another person. I'm not gonna hem them at different lengths. That would probably only be necessary if it was a really big difference. But I like to make sure that while the person's wearing the pants, I do both sides. Go ahead and have the person take off the pants, and then we're gonna turn them inside out while the pins are still in. Take your ruler or measuring tape and measure both sides so you know how much shorter you want the pants to be. So since I've folded this part up, that's what we're gonna measure, and we're at about 1.25 inches. Measure both sides. If your measurements are different for each one, I like to go with the smaller amount being taken off, and then I can always redo them if needed. So now that I've got my measurements, I'm safe to unpin these. Okay, so now you can see we already have this hem here. So I'm just going to measure that because that's the same hem that I would like to have. So once I bring that up, I still want this amount of fabric to be folded up into my hem. And I already know it's about 1.25 inches because when I tried them on and I folded them up, that was about the length that I wanted off. And that's not always gonna be the case. So just measure. Okay, let's do some measurements. So since I want 1.25 inches off of my pants, I'm gonna write that down. And then the hem that I want is 1.25 inches. Then I would do the amount that I want off, 1.25 minus the hem, which is 1.25, which means I would cut 0 off of my pants. Since the pants are already hemmed, that just means I need to unpick the stitching and then cut off right at the fold for those pants. But say that I wanted 3 inches off, just for an example, and our hem was 1.25. Then we would do 3 minus 1.25, which would give us 1 3/4. So the 1 3/4 is the amount that I would measure up from the bottom of the pants to cut off. My camera stopped recording when I was doing stuff. So pretend that these are still hemmed, and say we were going with our 3 inches off example, if we needed the pants to be 3 inches shorter. So we were gonna be cutting off 1 3/4 inch. So what I would do is take my ruler and we're going to measure at 1 3/4, and then you would take your marking chalk, whatever you have to mark, just make sure it's not something permanent. And we're gonna mark, you would just mark all the way around. And then what I would do is take my scissors and we're gonna mark, I would mark all the way around the pants. Take our scissors and then we would cut on that line there. Next thing we need to do is finish this raw edge. So before we cut this off, it had that nice serged edge on there. Most of us don't have a serger, so how do we handle that? Well, you can take some pinking shears, and these give it a zigzag cut that make it so that the edge doesn't fray. Or we could finish it off with different stitches on our sewing machine. So we can just use a zigzag stitch along the edge if you don't have a super advanced machine. This one's a little bit more advanced, so I have these other options here for different overlock stitches. I'm going to use this one right here, number 17. So for the zigzag stitch, I would just use my regular presser foot. For this overlock stitch, I'm going to be using my presser foot G, which looks like this. So I'm going to take the raw edge of my pants, got them here, I'm opening them up. So we're only working with one layer here. And I am going to butt this raw edge of the pants right up to the edge of this part of the presser foot here. I've got my matching thread loaded up, and then we're going to start sewing. So now you have that nice overlocked edge, and it looks a lot like it would if you were using a serger. It's really nice. Next, fold the bottom of the pants. And we're still inside out right now. So this is the wrong side of our fabric. This is the outside, the right side of the pant fabric. We're gonna fold it to the hem size that we want. And remember, for these pants, we wanted 1 1/4 inches. And then take your iron, and we're gonna iron that down to make a crease. And then just to make sure that's extra secure, I like to put some pins and face them this way. So we're going from the top of the pants to the bottom of the pants. Next, take the pant leg and kind of turn it inside of itself. So we're gonna tuck the cuff down in. And so we've got our raw edge here that we put our overcasting stitch on, and that's gonna stick out. You want it to stick out about 1/4 inch. That's the reason why I put the pins this way, because now I'm gonna take out each pin as I'm holding it with that 1/4 inch sticking out. I'm gonna take it out and then put it back in so that it's going through all the layers of that fold. So then just continue to move around the pant leg, keep that about 1/4 inch like that, remove the pin, and then put it back so it goes through all layers. Make sure when you get to the side seams of the pants that you line them up as best you can. Grab the presser foot that goes with your blind hem stitch. On my machine, it's presser foot R. It looks like this. It has this guiding rail down the middle of it. Next, we want to choose our blind hem stitch, which is going to be this one here or this one here. The one with the dots on it in between is for regular fabric. The ones with the zigzags in between is for stretchy fabric. Take off this part of your machine. Slide the pant leg over this part of the machine. Lift up your presser foot a little bit. And we're putting the fold of the fabric right up against this guide in the middle. And then I'm going to use my hand wheel to crank down and just check and make sure where that's going to hit. You don't want the needle to go too far to the left, because then you're going to catch too much of this fabric and then a really big stitch is going to show on the front. So you want it to just barely be catching this fabric along here. If you notice that the needle's too far to the left, meaning it's catching too much of this fabric, you can adjust the stitch width. And likewise, if it's not catching enough of this fabric or it's not going into it at all, you want it to just barely be going in. If it's not going in at all, mess around with the stitch width and see what you can do to make it catch that. So you can see as it stitches, it's just going a few stitches along this raw edge of our fabric that we overcasted, and then 1 stitch into the folded side. And continue doing that all the way around until you get back to where you started. Remove the pant leg. You'll see that if you used a thread that matches nicely, you'll barely see any stitches along the front. If I had used a different color thread, you'd see all these little tiny stitches along here. And then on the back, we have our nice finish. Turn them right side out, give them a press, and then you'll have nicely hemmed pants. There you go. Hopefully you've been able to successfully hem a pair of pants. Head over to my blog, cutesycrafts.com, for more fun craft ideas, and make sure to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss a video.